Hey everyone, it's Mr. Berthium, your friendly environmental science teacher, here in Idaho at the Sawtooth Lodge. The Sawtooth Lodge in outside of Stanley, Idaho. Beautiful spot. Today we're talking about landslides because I didn't know it, but this place, Sawtooth Lodge, experienced a landslide from these hills, these mountains last year. So we're going to investigate and talk about landslides. So I'll meet you at the top. All right, well, we're not at the top right now, but we're almost there. I just wanted to show you this road cut. From here, you can see where the landslide happened. If you look up toward those mountains, there's a waterfall, which we can hear in the background. And the landslide came straight through here and all the way down. And behind me, you can see it down into the distance. You can see some cabins right there where I'm staying. But they had to cut this road straight through the landslide in order to maintain access. So still working my way up to the top. All right, you guys, we made it to the top where the landslide actually happened. I hope you can hear me because of all the water that's flowing down here. It's kind of making a loud ruckus. Beautiful waterfall. But the owner of the Sawtooth Lodge was telling me that this waterfall was never here. This landslide happened last year. And so this is only a year old. And so the land was kind of up in here. And when the landslide happened, everything kind of slid down. All the land that was up here, it just kind of eroded and slipped down. And you can see where it's all kind of moved through here. You can see some dead trees, and indeed this tree is dead, this tree's dead. So a lot of these trees didn't survive, and obviously anything on the bottom here did not survive either. But some trees did survive, and I'll take you down there and we'll see how the landslide affected the ecology of the land here. But as we look back up, I just want to show you, kind of cool, if we zoom in here, you can kind of tell by the color of the rock where the land has eroded and where that landslide happened, because you'll get coloration like this darker color on these rocks when they're exposed to air and weather and water. You know, they can oxidize from chemical reactions with oxygen. They can also have creatures come in like lichen and moss and start to grow on there, kind of discolor the rock. So underneath here where this light color is, it's basically what we might call virgin rock. Virgin in terms of it's just seeing the light of day for the first time. And so it's that nice light color. So over time that'll start to weather and oxidize and turn a darker color. But it's cool because we can see where that landslide happened. And the guy at the inn, Jesse, was telling me that this added about 15 feet to their little waterfall here. So all of this was land and just pulled away and formed this beautiful waterfall, which is good for Jesse and his tourism industry because, of course, waterfalls are a unique attraction and it draws people to the place. So it's kind of good for them, although we'll talk about the damage that occurred to the Sawtooth Inn because of this landslide. Now, you guys should know what causes a landslide. There's one main thing that causes landslides. Can you guess? Starts with a G. That's right, folks. Gravity. Gravity. Remember, gravity is acting on us all the time, including all of this rock, all of these trees, everything here. Gravity is continually acting on it, wanting to pull anything that's up, down. And so you get a slope like this on the mountain, gravity is acting on it. So over time, you know, you can see rocks fall, you see trees fall. But what happens when a landslide happens is somehow the soil and the rock there is kind of lubricated or made slippery so that the gravity can take control and take it down in one fell swoop, if that's the right term. And so what happened here, Jesse was telling me that a fire came through 2 years ago. A fire came through and took out a lot of these trees, so you don't see a lot of trees here up on this slope. Not a lot of vegetation on this slope. As you know, trees and vegetation, they have roots that go into the soil, into the rock, and they hold the roots there. They hold the rock and the soil intact. They kind of stabilize the soil. So if a fire comes through, kills all of those trees, all of that vegetation, now the soil doesn't have those roots to kind of hold it in, to hold the soil and the rock in place. And then you get another event that comes through. So last year, what happened, Jesse was telling me, was that 2 inches of rain came in about 8 hours. 2 inches of rain. That is a lot of rain, torrential rain for a long time. So what happened was this soil, which wasn't very stable because of the fire that came through and took out all the roots, the soil became saturated with this water. And saturation, it gets heavy, water is heavy, so it's extra heavy, and now it's a little lubricated because of the water. And man, that's when your mudslide or your landslide happens. And that's exactly what happened here. On one event, it all came out in one fell swoop all the way down here. So I think I'll take a video and we'll walk down and you'll see the landslide and what happened here. Okay, another environmental science concept we can see actually in action here with this landslide is the concept of succession, plant succession. Without explaining the whole thing, the basic premise of succession is that different plant communities will come into an area, and over time, new plant communities will kind of take over where the older plant communities were, and over time, the trees or the plants get taller, they get woodier, they have more ability to grab water, they have more ability to grab light. So what's happening here when you have a landslide come through, you have what essentially is primary succession. That means there's no soil here, it's just rock that's come through, and there's no plants. So succession happens first with very small plants, typically annual plants. That's plants that live 1 year and then they die out. Let me show you some of that. Yeah, so this is a great example of primary succession where you just have bare rock. There's no soil here, and it's brand new rock that came from the landslide just a year ago. So you can see there's no plants. But look, we do see a plant here and there. Here's a type of, I think that's a type of sedge coming up. And then you have some grass right here. And so the first plants that will come in to start to start to inhabit this area are going to be annual plants like grasses and certain types of wildflowers, because their seed can easily be dispersed, planted right here, and they sprout out really quick. And so over time, if we came back next year, you'd see a lot more plants here, because these guys will go to seed, everything over here will go to seed, and it'll start seeding in. So over time, you'll get a nice I can probably compare it to the wildflowers growing over here. So this will be kind of our first stage of succession, these annual plants. Then over time, these guys will start to decompose and their nutrients will go back into the rock, and there'll start to be soil that's being built. Soil that contains more nutrients and can support plants that are woodier, that are shrubbier. And so you might get some shrubs coming in looking like this. This could be the next stage of succession because the soil is rich enough to support these types of plants. And then over time, even these guys will be taken over by these monsters here, these big pines, ponderosa pine, Doug firs, and these kind of trees. So if we came back, I don't know when I'll be back here, but if I do ever come back, I'll take a picture and you'll see that over time, this area will become rich in soil, rich in plants, and will be converted back into a forest. It'll take many, many years, but this is the concept of succession, ecological succession. So make sure you're familiar with that concept. This is a great example of it. Can you think of other examples where primary succession might happen? How about like a volcano eruption where just a bunch of big ash is thrown off into the ground and you're covered with 3 feet of ash, as happened in Mount St. Helens. That's a great spot to see primary succession. There's also something called secondary succession. I'm not going to explain that here, but you should be familiar with the differences between primary succession and secondary succession. Okay, this is the last section I wanted to show you. This is the cabin I'm staying in. Beautiful little one-room cabin with got a little wood stove going inside, keeping it warm. This cabin was built in 1930, very historic, and you can see the black comet there. But this is just up from the landslide, and you can see where the landslide and the rock and the sand and gravel pulled its way all the way through here. And Jesse was saying we'd have about 1.5 feet of gravel that came through here. Luckily not enough to destroy any buildings, but they had to do some serious excavation here and plowing and just getting these cabins kind of back to normal. So it's kind of cool, and we can see some succession happening already with this grass coming in just a year later. All right, hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you get out in nature and see some of these things that we talk about in class. It's really cool to actually see it happening. And I'm just glad I wasn't here when that landslide happened. They say they evacuated everyone in the place in 14 minutes. Got everybody out of here because it was quite dangerous, as you can imagine.